Bo Welch, you're nominated for Outstanding Production Design for a half-hour program for the premiere episode of Schmigadoon, which is inspired by musicals of the 40s and 50s. Is this your first time designing for a musical?
Yes, it is. And I hope it's not my last because I loved it.
How familiar were you with the musicals of the 40s and 50s that the show is paying homage to, or was that something completely new to you?
I had a very sort of shallow understanding of the musicals of the 40s and 50s, but our showrunner, Cinco Paul, who's deeply immersed in the world of 40s and 50s musicals, and who wrote the music and the scripts, was kind enough to send links to all of the relevant musicals. And so I spent days just watching musicals, and it gave me a newfound appreciation and a much deeper understanding of their appeal and also their corniness, and they were really fun. It was really fun to do that, total immersion, let it come in one end and see what happens on the backside, filtered through our own sensibilities.
And what were some of your favorite, musicals or details, as you were, going on that deep dive that you wanted to bring into the show?
You know what? I can't single one of those out because I watched so many. But you can't beat Gene Kelly, his dancing, whether Singing in the Rain, Rigadoon. I mean, just the way he moved, just mind-blowing. It was so elegant. I give him a thumbs up.
And designing for a musical, what kind of considerations go into the design when you have to have musical numbers and choreography in mind for whatever you're creating?
Everything I do has to accommodate song and dance, and when you watch them, you see there's a great deal of physicality involved in these dancers, and our dancers were, oh my God, they were so good. So you had to, for their own safety, create surfaces and spaces that they're not going to, trip, fall, skid, whatever, while dancing and singing. And then the other consideration is how many people are in a given number at any given time. How far are they going to come upstage, downstage, left, right? So you factor all that into composing images.
And how did you settle on a color palette for the show with Cinco and with the costume department? How was that visual decided?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion about that, as always. But in looking at the old musicals, there was kind of a palette that I don't even know how you describe it. I think ultimately between costumes and the sets, we landed on what I would call colorful, but also pushing sort of into the Sherberts, so that it had a slightly vintagey feel, but colorful. And of course, the material is framed in each episode by a brief interlude in contemporary real world settings, which we also built. And those were deliberately desaturated to the point of almost black and white, so that there's a contrast with this idealized, fantastical world of Schmigadoon. So it was, there was a contemporary, desaturated, boring frame around this beautiful Schmigadoon world. That was the sort of the concept palette-wise.
And I love how the sets sort of play with this kind of, it looks like the set of a town, and there's so much beauty to it. And just playing with the sort of artificiality of it. tell me about sort of working on that and creating that to sort of balance that sense of here's a real place, here's a kind of
I
movie
think
music.
that's the trickiest part, is finding the level of artificiality where you don't distract from the narrative, and it's beautiful enough that you want to be there, but it's artificial enough that it is reminiscent of these 40s and 50s musicals, which when they were done were aiming for, you know, realism, but from today's perspective, everyone looks at it on their 4K device, and you can see the artifice. So there was a lot of dialogue about that, and I think, you know, I think we landed in a good spot where it had artificiality, but you still, by virtue of building it and putting these incredibly talented performers in it, you buy it, and there's a sense of joy that is contagious throughout all 6 episodes. I think I watched it as a fan, not just the production designer. I absolutely love this material and would watch it with a smile plastered on my face every Friday when it dropped.
And you worked with director Barry Sonnenfeld on the show. And of course, you've worked multiple times with him over the course of your careers. And you often create these really heightened imaginative worlds together. What about that partnership has made you two work so well together so consistently?
Well, I adore Barry Sonnenfeld and his sense of humor. He's one of the smartest people I know, and his sense of humor, his skill with a camera is unmatched. He's really great to work with, and completely honest and candid, and I think that comes across. There's just something very present about his work, and he likes to do things. He likes stylization and likes to build on stage, and so do I. We have a shared sensibility in that regard, and I can't imagine doing a show like this, which is a pretty fresh and great concept. But if I didn't have the shorthand with him, you know, so much. He called me during right when the COVID outbreak happened, and said, we're looking at this, da, 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 and I checked it out and read it, and I loved it. But so much of the prep is done the way we're doing this right now on Zoom. And something's lost when you're not face to face with people. But so we prepped it, and then the COVID got worse, and we're on again, off again. I'm designing, I'm selling, and then the summer came along and we were put on pause. And then sometime in August, they said, go. And well, we had a ridiculously short window to crank out this town, you know, town, woods, carnival, all this stuff, and have it ready for rehearsals in like September. So it was a real scramble, and it was pre-vaccine. And so there's, you know, all the testing and not knowing, and it was rough. It was pretty tough, but fantastic crew in Vancouver. Never any whiners, never anybody. They share the enthusiasm that we had for the material, and that's what you want. You want people who get it, who share that enthusiasm, and just dive headlong into it, regardless of masks and testing, and so that's how that went down. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that part of the Barry question? No.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I love working with Barry. I love working with Barry. We have a great time together. Yeah.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your Emmy nomination and on your work on the show. It's a pleasure to just feast your eyes on, and
Thank you very
it's
much.
been a pleasure talking about it.